See ya.
Good morning, Sean. Happy
Hey, good.
Friday.
Happy Friday, Jay. Good morning to you on January 15th, a bright and sunny wintry day in Southern California. Loving the blue skies, feeling very grateful for being here, and especially being here with you on this Friday morning, which, as you know, is something I cherish every week.
Yes, well, 2021 has taken off like a rocket. That's for darn sure.
That is for darn sure. And I would say that in every which way, but specifically because this show is brought to the viewership through Heyler Realty and our efforts, it has gone gangbusters. Now, listen, I'm knocking on wood. I'm crossing everything I possibly can because last year, 2020, January, boom, off to the races. And then, and we had
March
to deal
happened.
with what became with March, actually, whatever. Point is, yeah, it was crazy. But it's wonderful to be wanted. It's wonderful to be needed. And it is really fulfilling to help people in their endeavor to make these big transitions in their lives, that which is really what we are. We're like custodians walking them through this process, and all kinds of great processes. I mean, we've just closed a couple fantastic. So you closed a nice, beautiful transaction for a family looking for a change of lifestyle. Just yesterday was a tremendous achievement. I know some of our team have closed a couple deals in other marketplaces in the last week, which is also always good and enriching for us and the benefit of Heyler. I was fortunate to put a client right into escrow right out of the gate, like
Right?
one property, two property. Great, we'll buy that property. Okay. So I was like, let's go. And then to be able to have other clients that are keeping us very busy out there hunting and searching and lining up other listings. We've got new listings to share, and we'll bring this all back in the back end of the production today. But it's those efforts. So thank you to the viewership and for the referrals and for thinking of us, the people that you trust. You send the people you care about to the people you trust, and we work hard to maintain that bond and that word with you. And Jay, you've just been an inspiration in your hard work and effort, your tremendous consistency. Everywhere I look, it's a Jay Wu doing something, which is rather fantastic. And it is one of those things that enriches and energizes. And it does that for me. And I see that happening with the team. And I think that 2021 will bring a lot of very significant positive changes, especially to our little Heyler team. So I'm excited about it.
Especially since our January, or actually our New Year really isn't celebrated until February 1. So January is normally our ramp up month because December is normally quiet. But this year, obviously, nothing has been traditional of what we've had. So this year has been very different in so many ways. But it's interesting. People keep asking me, what is your one word for 2021? And I really can't think of one word. I mean, the big word that comes to mind is connection. But that's just, it's so hard to say that in one word. Deeper connection, staying connected, creating connection, fueling connection. So there's so many different things around the word connection that I was trying to play with. And then transition. I think that so many folks are in transition. And I know that National Association of Realtors came out with an article that said that 10% of people are definitely, if this continues, the work at home, they're going to move 50 miles away from where they currently live or more. And 10% will stay within the 50 miles. But there's 30% of people that are really thinking of making some changes if working from home is going to be in their imminent future forever and ever. And so it's, it's an interesting fact. Obviously, we have this time to pause and rethink and reconsider what our lifestyle choices are and what our life can be. And this reflection time of being at home, there's new trends emerging whenever something intensely major like this happens. So,
I love your words. I love your choice of words. I really do. And what's interesting, and this is how you and I operate, you were saying connectivity and connection. And at that time, the neurons in my brain were firing with transition. And so it just tells you, how in sync we are and congruent in our philosophy that of the things that we've missed in pandemic time and COVID, in the COVID era, it is connection, whether that be physical embrace, which is huge, and the intimacy of being in person and seeing somebody eye to eye and talking to them and their cadence and their biorhythms and all those things that we share energetically with people. And we recognize that we need to move forward, right? And I think the idea of connectivity is something we've missed, and is beyond just psychological and emotional. It becomes actually spiritual, and in the sense that it brings us all together. Yeah, it really
Right.
does. And so
It's a shared energy.
it's huge. And then the idea of transition. And I think of transition in lockstep with transformation. I think that these are two different ideas. I think you use the transition to make the transformation. And it is, like you just identified, whether it's domicile and space where you live and breathe and spend your time and grow and develop your life, and or it is other things that you wish to achieve. So I think we can create our own word, and I'm trying to put it together in my head real quick, which is connect transition, but it's some kind of idea.
Well, who better to help us with transition and changing our domicile than our guest today,
Perfect.
which is
Couldn't believe
Regina Lark. I want to bring her in because she's been in the
Please
waiting room.
do.
And
Those people
say hello to our dear friend Regina, who has been the queen of transformation in helping folks declutter and make that transition happen in their lives and make it far easier than doing it alone, for sure. And so, hi, Regina. Thanks for joining us.
So good to see you too.
Love it. Love it. Well, yes. Well, Regina is the owner of A Clear Path, and she is, you know, the master of creating and helping people declutter, as well as transition from whether it's downsizing or, you know, actually, unfortunately, the big thing right now is people who've passed away, and helping, you know, families, you know, unravel that whole transition that happens when a loved one passes, and having to take on that project of helping people, you know,
well, yeah,
undo that. Yeah.
Well, there's an unravel, right? And so, you know, to Regina's mastery, and it's rare that Jay and I sit in kind of that admiration of a person in a very equal and balanced way, because we kind of approach life so differently in so many ways. But the idea of what, Regina, you bring into people's lives, you are a no nonsense or go getter, straightforward. Hey, this might be a little painful, but we're going there kind of person. And it makes you extremely effective and efficient. And you take on really what we as human beings often don't realize, which is attachment. And it's attachment to things that may have lost their meaning or not as significant any longer. And I think of you as actually a miracle worker, with people understand what you can do. And by the way, you don't need Regina just to do it if you're moving. Regina can come into your life and help you look at where you're living and how you're living, and say, okay, if you want help, if you're feeling boxed in, if you're feeling congested, if you're feeling tied up, you need to look at your environment and what you have around you. So Regina, you're just awesome. And I'm so excited you're here, because you are a key component to transition and transformation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, how did you even get started in this business, Regina? I know it's always like that question is like, how did this land into your life? Because you have such an interesting background.
Well, I get asked that a lot. I finished a PhD in history in 1999, and now it stands for Piled Higher and Deeper. Who knew? Who knew that would happen?
That's a great
so the last job that I ever had, which will always be my last job, I was a director of programs for UCLA Extension. And about 3 years into it, I went to Jerusalem to visit a good friend of mine. And she lived near the Jericho Gate in the old city. And one of the days I was there for 3 weeks, and she worked at Hebrew University. And on one of my vacation days, I called her up at the university. I said, Nadra, I don't want to be a tourist today. How about if I do your kitchen? And I'm on the phone with her, and I hear this like sharp intake of breath. Well, what do you mean by that? And I said, Nadra, your girls are in their 30s. You got sippy cups in the cupboard. Just let me do what I do. I didn't even know I did something But in hindsight, I knew that of my family of origin, there are 6 of us. 4 of us are like
Wow.
me and 2 of us need us,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
Nadira reluctantly agreed for me to do her kitchen. And I went into the shops in the old city, and here's this very outspoken feminist going into the shops in the old city, asking them for, I speak neither Hebrew nor Arabic, but I wanted their empty boxes because I knew I was going to be filling them. So that took a while, and I finally amassed a lot of boxes. I brought them in Nadira's apartment, and I spent the day doing what I do. And it was a good result. She came home, and 3/4 of her kitchen were now in boxes in the living room. And I didn't know one needed several different types of Arabic coffee pots for different occasions.
Oh,
So we kept a lot of those, but everything else was donated. So I don't think anything of it. I go back to my desk at UCLA, and 1 week later, I was informed that my unit at UCLA Extension was being dismantled and my position eliminated.
Whoa.
And it was the beginning of the recession. Now, on a lot of levels, this was not a great fit for me professionally. So I had been out looking for jobs, so that when the layoff happened, I thought, the goddess of jobs had just done for me what I was not able to do for myself. It's a recession. I am now out of work. I'm about to turn 50, and I'm like, what the hell? And so I told my roommate, I'm going to organize until something better comes along.
huh.
Nothing better has come along. Honestly,
Well,
I was living.
Well, you did my pantry though, Regina, and I have to tell you, it really is a gift how you're able to compartmentalize sections.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think as humans, we live in something and we just get used to it, right? The way it is and so forth. And I feel like I'm a pretty organized timeline person. When it comes to scheduled timeline, I'm one of the most organized, but when it comes to my surroundings, it's a totally different beast.
Sure.
And I don't have that gene of being able to compartmentalize stuff. Whereas my time, I am about as reliable as a clock.
Yeah.
When it comes to
stuff. More reliable than a clock.
I would call you, I would call today a hybrid. Because I'll say this, most people who need someone like me in their life, and someone like me I would describe as a professional organizer, declutterer. So when the average consumer calls somebody like me, they usually have all the books that have been written on how to get organized, and that's the first thing we declutter.
So obviously these aren't working.
And when I first started, I thought I was going to make garages look pretty, and I found out that my pretty isn't your pretty, and that I was surprised to learn that some people had a hard time activating on the idea of what they wanted to do. And I found all that very curious, that when I was in a client session, I say, before I come back next week, go through this pile of mail. And I would come back the next week, and not only was that pile of mail not gone through, but there were other piles. And I thought that was interesting. And so I found a group called the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. And the ICD is where mental health professionals meet professional organizers.
Okay.
And what I've learned is that a lot of people with clutter are dealing with brain-based conditions. And these, back up. In order for us to get on this call on time, the part of our brain that gives us a relationship with time is fully functioning. We're able to feel time and see time, and we're on time. So a lot of people with clutter don't have good relationship with time. But you're the hybrid, Jay, in that the pantry clutter just overwhelmed you. You just didn't know where to start, what to do. And it was overwhelming. And overwhelming is an emotion.
Mm.
And the other part of our brain that when we're fully functioning and operating, it's called the executive function of our brain. When we're on task, on time, we have emotional management, we have time management, we're linear, we're sequencing, we're planning. If we are confronted with tedious, mind-numbing, boring, repetitive, if we are confronted with overwhelm, if we are confronted with, but these were my grandma's platters from the old country. Now, they may not fit in our kitchen, but they may go into storage.
You know who you are. You know who you are.
No.
The viewer knows who they are.
And then we have the storage unit industry, the land of indecision, the land of emotional mismanagement. And it's a $36 billion industry.
Wow.
Ish.
Right.
So while you are, Jay, really good at the linear, the planning, I know how you are with your boys. You know, there's discipline and time management and I've been to your home and it's lovely. But when you're in overwhelm, you get the block and you kind of, and then you're just like.
And I know where everything is. I know that there are, 12 bags of pasta. Well, they're eventually going to go through it, but I also don't do the shopping either. So it's just kind of like, next thing you know, there's like a whole accumulation of things that my husband has.
Like, wow, did we really need more pasta?
2 growing teenage boys, they do
yeah, you do
eventually get through it.
Well,
but,
listen,
it's amazing. That's why we have a PhD, organizer here, because not only has she written 2 books about the whole and connecting the mental background behind why we are the way we are, to kind of help maybe unravel, and create a connection between why it is what it is versus, why it never gets done or changes.
Well, it's creating the connection, but I've noticed that a lot of folks, they use words like later, sometimes, and lazy. Later is every second that we're living. It's always later. Later is right now. So it's sometimes. Or someday and later, we are in it all the time. And then there's lazy. And lazy, honestly, I don't believe in lazy. I think there's a reason why we don't do something. But what I've noticed is a lot of people aren't curious about the why.
Well, there's responsibility in that curiosity. If you investigate the why, then you're convicted, right? At that point, because you now know, because you've gone through the process of understanding why. And if you invest in that at that point, you're almost forced to either take action or do the exact opposite.
Yeah. I agree. I am but the thing is that a lot of people don't even know to ask the question. It just becomes this blanket of, oh, I'm too lazy, or I don't know why I put that there. Or people will say, I cleared it up, but it came back and it doesn't have legs. And so the more we disassociate ourselves, right? It's not like our paper clutter is going to walk back in. We have to have something to do with that. So it's not that we are not, it's like we accept our belief system at face value without questioning it.
Well, there's safety and security in that, but that's the misnomer, and that's part of what I love about you, Regina, and the way you handle things. this idea is, if, okay, well, I can live with this. I know what it is, right? I quantify it. And yes, it's busy. But what I don't think people understand and don't ask is, when you address these things that are being unaddressed, you start to liberate yourself from the bondage that they're actually putting you in. Your stuff. I need this plate from my great grandmother. No, when's the last time you actually used it?
But Sean, that is a logical approach. We want to be logical about it. We want to say, well, if you haven't used it for a year, let it go. Versus, what meaning does it hold for you? And if it holds meaning and you have clutter, what around here doesn't hold similar meaning, and what can you let go?
There you go.
I was thinking the other day, most of us have not worn many clothes in our closet for a year.
Right. Of course,
Pajamas.
but this is unusual, right? I haven't worn a suit in, 2 years.
Right. So if we go by that premise, we're not going
supposed to get rid of all the suits?
Well,
except
some
for
of our clothes
some
of the clothes are not fitting the same. Thank you, COVID.
Right. I mean, we have undergone a huge transformation in our society, our culture, interpersonally, externally. I mean, we are continuing to go through a huge transformation, and it's tough. And so I'm somebody who's more about organizing principles than rules. So for me, an organizing principle is, what does it mean to be organized for Regina? For Regina, it means being able to get what I need when I need it, and being able to put it back just as easily when I'm finished with it.
That sounds so simple.
It's a principle, right? It's not a rule. Rule is if you haven't worn it in a year. Rule is if you haven't used it in 6 months. One rule, if it doesn't fit, well, some of us are actively engaged in weight or gain, weight loss or gain programs, right? If we're actively engaged in that, then go through the size that's one up or one down from where you are. Go to the clothes in the size that you're aiming for, and choose like the stuff that made you look the best, the hottest, because that's what you're going for, is looking and feeling good. And
right.
like the clothes in the closet that's meh,
right.
it's going for the clothes in the closet that you look at, you try on, you put it back on the hanger, and then
right. And we tolerate it being there, but we're never excited to wear it. So then why bother keeping it there?
Right.
And letting that go.
I see a great correlation between the two, right? Just the way that we either are carrying and bringing more into ourselves in our own bodies, and it's similar as metaphorically in our environment. You bring more things in, and it either stimulates or brings comfort or distraction from a lot of that, what you have learned over the years in your practice and truly your mastery. How much stuff people are carrying in here and not willing to go through it. I personally have seen a couple of cases where I've been with you where and I know that you've really learned to work through it. You're a lot like Jay in the sense you guys are like ice cutters, if you know what I mean. You're cutting right through the glacier. I'm just headed there. This is where we got to go. And very straight line. And not everybody does that. There's a lot of this, right? You probably see a lot of people retract. I can think of one case in particular where it was like a push-pull, 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 until in their minds it started to settle. It's almost like a Tetris game. They had to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and that's what you help them do by asking those thought-provoking questions. But sometimes that's an exercise in patience and recognizing it's their relationship to time and how they relate to time. To your point, sometimes the lazy, I would actually argue lazy is a deflector for time, right? It's an excuse or a reason or an alibi. Like, okay, I want my time. And Jay knows that I work very hard to operate even more than on time. I try to work in time, meaning I try to be instinctively where I need to be at that moment. And it's a combination of the activator in my brain, knowing I have a general relationship with it, but it's also feeling where I am at. Let me tell you, I was like a hurrying little scurrying pat rat to get here early because I knew the two people would be waiting on the Zoom call for me here. I know their personalities, but my wife had given me a task of trying to unravel her very fine little gold necklaces that had all bunched in a ball like that, which, by the way, is just torture. But there's
Toothpick.
I was
Toothpick.
using
Safety
pins,
pin or
but
toothpick.
toothpicks. I
Yeah.
should have probably used toothpicks. I needed a little bit more, but I loved it because it was such a Zen exercise. And my wife's like, "Well, you need to go. You need to go." And I go, "I can't. Trust me. This will release as soon as I'm supposed to walk out the door." It didn't, but it was like two threads left. Like, and the point was, I needed that satisfaction, but I also had to respect those other people. So there's that intuitive, instinctive relationship with time and taking action, and facing the things that we carry in our lives, facing the things that have we have derived pleasure or use from, and then things that are mementos, and then sorting through that priority. I'd have to ask you, Regina. You've done this countless times. I'm assuming, and share if you can, where you've seen people literally make changes where they physically react to the process of what you go through when you help them.
Well, it's a good observation. One of the things, so when people call in someone like me, they're often in a chronic state. These are folks that were born with a brain type that they've never felt like they could get their shit together. They've always been late. People make fun of them. They can't find their keys. And there's this cluster of clutter that sort of, found them all their lives. And often, like the people that we work with, super smart, professional, educated, but they have a really interesting relationship to their stuff. And I've noticed that people hold on to their things even when they're moving and downsizing, when they call us in just to get rid of the clutter and be more organized or productive, or when they're moving, I hear very similar stories about stuff. And it's holding on for one of two reasons. One, I may need it someday.
Right.
But I have rarely met the person who can not only identify what someday has to look like in order for this thing to get used.
I'm so convicted by that. I'm sorry. I'm enjoying that, Regina. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm listening going, yeah, that's right. I haven't even visualized why I need the freaking thing. I don't actually have the purpose in mind. I just know that I might need it.
I hear you. I've been to your house. No, I haven't. And so we hold on to things that we think we may need someday, not able to identify, well, what does someday have to look like? But the other part of someday is this. If I let it go and someday appears and I don't have it, something not good's going to happen. We get
it's an irrational fear.
We get to that, we catastrophize. It's something not good is going to happen. We're convinced. And we don't look at, do we have something we can substitute? Does our neighbor have it? Often when we hold on to things we think we may need someday, often, not always, there's not a hard and fast rule about it, but it's usually not very much money. Like it could be a crock pot, it could be a blow dryer. I mean, we have this idea that we ought to have these things in our life in case we need it someday. And so we'll err on the side of giving someday all the weight and not the present.
Wow.
So it's the future.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? What a statement that is. But you don't need to. That's how good it was. It was so stream of consciousness flow. And it is the idea of present moment. That's where you actually exist.
But it's also based, I'm not a psychologist. I could play one on TV, but I'm not a psychologist. And what I'm observing is someday is couched in fear. Because I gave a whole talk once about someday the future, and I'm going to talk about the past, but someday the future. And a woman said to me, but I'm afraid if I let go of the crock pot. I said, there's the word, fear. So we have fear of letting go, and it's a fear of an unknown outcome. So someday is the future, and I see that we have our hand in the future, holding on to that which we may need someday. Then there's the stuff that came to us from the past. It's bowling trophies and grandma's platters from the old country. And it's the guy who said to me, Regina, if I get rid of all my concert t-shirts, how will anybody know I used to be cool? So
I've seen those closets before. And I know there might be 2 or 3 viewers right now that are listening. They know that they have those closets.
Well, and the thing is, the past, we're afraid of letting go of the past because we fear that the stories that we've told ourselves about the past, I used to be cool because look at these shirts. I bowled well. My past included 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases, alphabetized by genre, that were brought into my home office to allow me to complete my dissertation and teach my courses. My past included a great library. So when it came time for me to dismantle my library because I was moving from a house with a home office to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, 2 things I know about myself. 1, I will never pay for external storage. That's just, I'm cheap. I will never do that. But 2, I don't like being inconvenienced. So if I were to bring 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases to my apartment, I would have surely been inconvenienced, or I would have put it in external storage, and I don't believe in that. And so I had to make a really hard decision. And I remember standing in front of that bookcase and saying, okay, Regina, close your eyes, pretend you don't have the books. Who are you? Who are you now? Because the books, and I'm going to spend a bit of time on this because a lot of people have a lot of stuff from the past. The books represented to me my degree. They represented to me as a resource. I loved being a resource to people. I assumed that when anybody walked into my home office, they had all kinds of stories in their head about me. Wow, a really smart person lives here. Did you read all those books? I loved it that graduate students in my cohort would send me an email and say, I need to get this book from Interlibrary Loan. I'm not going to have it for a week. Would you happen to have it? I said, oh, yes, I do. It'd be in my book bag. I would turn around, alphabetized by genre. Oh, yes, I do. Here it is. It would be in my bag and it would be on campus the next day. So even when I finished my dissertation and I moved from being a professor of, an adjunct professor of women's history to an administrator, one would think that the books had lessened in importance because I didn't need them to dissertate and I wasn't teaching, but somehow they grew in value and importance because of all the stories I told myself about them, about what you thought of me. So when I see people holding on to a lot of artifacts and memorabilia from the past, they see it as a reflection on who they used to be rather than as an ingredient to how they've turned out to now.
So then how do you get rid of the varsity jacket you're never going to wear again from, like 1980, whatever? And how do you get rid of trophies and things that, that people carry on for decades and decades, and even the kids' report cards and so forth? I mean, fortunately with technology, there's a lot of scanning and so forth that can happen, digitizing, photos and so forth. So I know a lot of folks have taken on those kinds of projects while we've all had, been at home and no cocktail parties or happy hours to go to, or, dinners out, especially this last round, we've really been stuck at home. And it's just kind of like, what advice would you have for folks and how to start that process of, saying bye-bye to some of this, sentimental, memorabilia.
There's a few strategies that I can think of. One, yes, we have the luxury of the digital platform. I encourage people to take it one step further. So take the varsity jacket and the trophies, take pictures of it, and send the photos to a platform that allow you to get a book, so that you can have a book showing this. And you're more likely to pull a book out of your bookcase when you're sitting around.
That's a good idea.
So smart.
Sitting around with the family and you want to look at old photos, you're not going to all go around your phone.
Right.
You can spread a book over on your lap and look at the pictures. We tell parents in the before times, because I don't know how much of it is happening right now. I think not a lot, but I'll finish this thought. In the before times, when your child would come home from school, they usually had a bunch of stuff. There were papers and artwork and homework and notes and all of these things. All the students, all the work that the students produced all year. My recommendation is every week or every day or every time you unload the backpack, gather the things up that represent the students' work and throw it into a bin under the bed. Get a long plastic bin. They're usually about,
6 inches, right?
7 inches. Yeah.
A long plastic Rubbermaid bin, stick it under the bed, just throw everything in there the whole year. At the end of the school year, come up with a strategy that summer doesn't get to begin until you have completely emptied the rubber bin. Emptying the rubber bin is where you take pictures, you discard the items, you send the pictures to the platform to make a book, and now you have a book of 6th grade.
Oh, God, that's great discipline. That's
right?
just so effective.
It's discipline, but it's also putting it on the calendar. I mean, how do you enact any declutter project? It's got to go on the calendar, and it's got to be given a block of time. One of the big challenges with people with clutter is
accountability.
Well, it's accountability, but it's also a lot of folks don't know how long it takes them to do anything.
That's right.
Which is significant, because I could ask any person, how long does it take you to take a shower? And they'll all have an answer for me. They will. My recommendation, time yourself. If you're somebody who's always late, time yourself on how long it takes you to take a shower. And you may learn a lot about why you're always late. You have underestimated how long it takes you to take a walk, make dinner, take a shower, pick out your clothes for the day. I mean, we're in pandemic times. I am wearing this, all I wear is yoga pants, and I change my shirt. And when I am not in front of the camera, I wear a sleeveless tank top. And in fact, I was looking at pictures of myself in a Facebook, when they show up pictures from a long time ago, 2012, the outfit I had on in that picture was the one I was wearing when I was sitting there looking at it. I'm really simple when it comes to my attire, but to that point, we're going to succeed in our declutter projects is if we get it on the calendar for sure, and give ourselves a block of time. Giving ourselves a block of time is significant if you get an understanding of how long it takes you to do anything. So one strategy would really time yourself in the shower, but another strategy would be this. Pick, look around, what are the areas that you want to declutter? And I would start with the most benign and the smallest, the one that will not engender a whole lot of emotion and that you think won't take much time. And I always start with the junk drawer. And of course I have to say, if it's junk, why are you putting it in a drawer? But don't we put junk in the trash? Anyway, So we've got this junk drawer, and first I want you to determine what do you want and what's the drawer for? What do you want the drawer to be for? Utilities. It could be where you're going to put your hammer and picture hanging and a screwdriver. It could be where you put a pen and a notepad and some stamps and envelopes. Whatever you want your kitchen junk drawer to be, that's what it's going to be. Now, you're going to do your junk drawer, and you think it's only going to take you 10 minutes. Give yourself an hour. Just do it. Give yourself an hour, put it on the calendar, and whenever you do any declutter project, you need supplies. So supplies for a junk drawer, old sheet or towel, recycle bin, trash bin, a timer, and a bowl of warm, sudsy water. You show up, it's Friday morning, it's 9 o'clock, it's the junk drawer project. You've got your trash, you got your recycling, you're gonna shove everything off on the countertop and put down your old sheet or towel. And then on top of that, you're gonna put your bowl of warm, sudsy water. You're gonna put the timer on for 1 hour. You're gonna pull the drawer out. You're gonna dump it over, and you're gonna start sorting. And you're gonna see this big giant mess. Don't get overwhelmed. Sort, sort, sort. Crumbled rubber bands and Band-Aid packets. And how many Bed Bath & Beyond coupons do we need? I always see a lot of Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, and I'm thinking, wow, this person plans on doing a lot of shopping.
Either that or I should be able to buy a building with all the discount.
I mean, this, and then you're going to come across a lot of keys and coins. That's what the warm, sudsy water is for. Stick them in the warm, sudsy water. Do not leave your workstation. The keys and coins are going to be sticky and yucky. Just let them soak. And you're going to keep discarding, I mean, Bed Bath & Beyond coupons. I don't mean to belabor the point. Keep 5 if you have to keep any, because you know you're going to get another one tomorrow. Keep 5. And then start sorting, just start junking, you know, put the stuff in the trash. You're going to be blown away on how soy sauce packets and ketchup and like, I got a sodium problem. I'm not going to use all this soy sauce. Whatever it is, keep doing the work. Don't leave your station. If you are finished in under an hour, good information. You now know you need under an hour for your next junk drawer. If it takes you longer than an hour, more good information. You need more time to do your next junk drawer. Any of your declutter projects, if you're doing this DIY, you got to make the commitment to yourself. It is a commitment, and it is time consuming, and it is boring, repetitive, mind-numbing, tedious. The reason why you have clutter is you don't know how to start on the project.
Regina, one of the viewers have, what about need versus want?
Ooh, that's a great question. Need versus want versus desire. Okay. It's coming to terms with how it is that you want to live. What do you want? What do you want your space to look like, feel like, smell like, be like? If you can get that kind of clarity, and sometimes we need that clarity by talking it over with a friend, by having a good conversation with a professional organizer, just to see if that person can help draw out the clarity for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the question of what to do with our stuff is answered in the same way with all the stuff. It's, what is my relationship to it? How does it serve me? My apartment, I don't have a lot of stuff, just because I want to be able to get what I need when I need it and put it back just as easily. It's just a personal preference. It's my organizing principle. I also came up with another principle, and that is this. Whatever is in my space, it has earned the right to live with me.
Wow.
It has to feed me intellectually, right? So when I let go of my 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases, I put an ad on Craigslist, and a smart young grad student from Cal State Long Beach came over, and we filled her car till the tires were flat. I kept 5 of those books, which I actually still have, but the other books in my bookcase right now are there because I'm using them for my next book project. Chances are pretty good that when that project is put to bed, I'll probably donate the books. Again, a personal preference, because I think books were written to be read. So what gets to live here are the things that feed me intellectually or the things that feed me aesthetically. I have lovely things. I have 7 peace flags in 7 different languages hung across my wall, and those were draped around 2 bushes as I went up to my campsite at the Michigan Women's Music Festival in 2009. My sister had set up my campsite. I love these flags. They feed my heart and my imagination in unbelievable ways. They have earned the right to live with me. So when I think of need versus want versus desire, I have a pretty high bar. The other thing that gets to live with me is the stuff that feeds my tummy. And then, deodorant and shampoo. The things that I use every day, that gets to come
necessity.
in.
Right.
But the other things that I have assigned meaning to, my office manager, one of the services that we have at A Clear Path is we do online estate sale auctions.
Oh, great.
And this is really fantastic for people who are downsizing into for older adults who are going into assisted living. Mm-hmm. And for families who are calling in Heyler Realty because the older adult has passed and the house needs to get ready for sale, or what's next in the house, in the life of the house. So what we do is that we catalog the contents of the house and host these sales, and they're fantastic. And if your listeners want, send me an email and I'll give you a how-to. But Mary, my office manager, she saw a beautiful embroidery of purple irises, and she bid on it, unbeknownst to me, and she got it for $5. And I love it. And I hung it up as soon as I found it, or as soon as she gave it to me, and it feeds my aesthetic. So again, there's not a magic word or a magic wand on how to deal with this. I think 90% of dealing with clutter is dealing with what's going on in your head, and then you can work on what the hell is under your bed.
And that is one of the titles of your book, right? Now, if folks want to learn more about A Clear Path, what is your website?
aclearpath.com.
Okay, great. And I know that, we can talk about, and we definitely will have you back on our show, because I think there's so many levels of in-depth. We went a little bit over our time, but I tell you, you have such depth of knowledge, and I know how effective you are in getting things done.
Thank you.
And it's fascinating. I always learn something new whenever I talk to you. But you are amazing. Thank you for joining us today, Regina. Grateful for your
very
time.
effective and amazing at what you do. I have worked with both of you, and
Thank you.
You are get it done people. And one of the things I really appreciate about your practice is that you keep around you really, really good people who will be able to work with you to get you to the end of your goal. You don't mess around. You're not bullshitters. You really, you're very effective in how you strategize to get this through the process. And there's no taking chances. It's not willy-nilly with your company. And that's one of the reasons I like working with you too so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, we value the resources we vet. It takes a long time. It's taken a quarter century, frankly,
Right.
to some of the relationships we have now, and to vet and constantly nurture and grow and make sure that, we have the best resources possible to help us, and then pass that on to our clients and the people we really care about, to help improve their lives and help them reach their goals as well. And so that's the fulfillment factor, right? That is the fulfillment of, you know, being a human being and to be able to guide and be there for others and help others in the least stressful manner that possibly can be approached. And so that is constantly our goal. And I know being tidy and having less clutter definitely creates the bandwidth for expansion and growth. And today's word has definitely been transition and now transformation. So thank you, Regina, for joining us today and for your time and sharing your knowledge. And I know that if folks want to reach you, they can definitely reach you via going to the clear path and creating a clear path so they can get through the closet possibly.
That's right. All right, you two. Happy Friday.
So
Golf
happy.
soon, Jen. I hope you play golf soon. And pleasant
Yes.
week to you both.
Yes.
Bye,
Hugs.
sweetie.
Virtual hugs. Great. Woo. Amazing.
Well,
Amazing.
the thing about Regina and her mastery and her own experience and how she applies it to her business, and I would argue her business is therapy. I would argue that her business is
Isn't all of our, I think 90% of what we do is mental as well.
I think there's definitely connectivity, right? And there's certainly relating to people. And yes, because we work in a heady space, we work in a big space, big numbers, big consequences to the action. So I do agree. That's why she's such a trusted component. She is, if you will, she's almost a scalpel to our surgery that we're performing for people, right? She's so sharp and
very
precise.
Good analogy. Yeah.
And she really helps get to the center of things. And it liberates people. I've seen it numerous times. Interestingly enough, even in my efforts as the chairperson for the WLAH, which is the West Side Homeless Organization, we did a winter drive and we ended up with like almost 100 boxes full of stuff. I still have 30 or 40 that I'm like, okay, I need to donate and move on. And that told me there are a lot of people cognizant. There are a lot of people in the community that have to give, and not only the desire to give, but are able to give and declutter, right? Move things forward, share them, and not hold on to them. I kind of always remember there was a little rhyme that had to do with the magic penny. If you hold it tight, you won't have any, but you lend it and spend it and you get so many, it'll fall all over the floor. And I think that's the idea of abundance and allowing a flow, and the relationship with time is a flow where things come in and things move forward. And I feel very blessed in my life that people have lived that way. I think we try to live that way. We very much live that way with our time, with our willingness to give people time and to share. And sometimes it's not easy to Regina's point. I'm excited to try to apply, and I want to use the word try because I'm a scaredy cat, to apply the junk drawer theory. Like, okay, let's turn that over. Oh my God.
I think it's brilliant.
That 19th Apple charger. Like I've got 19 of the little freaking little squares in the head, whatever, right? And she's so right. It's such a repurpose. And I know that when the sense of satisfaction that I have when I go through that audit and that edit and that purge process. And I would definitely encourage any of the viewers, if you needed an assistance with it and you needed insight or practical application, visit her site, read one of her books, or contract her to come over and spend a little time with her, because she will go through and she won't have mercy. That's the best part. There will be no mercy.
What's so funny though is everything she said is, you can totally envision the whole old rubber band, the sticky, the key is sticky because the candy that's been sitting in that drawer that one of the kids threw in there. And you know,
I might need this Band-Aid.
Yeah, the old, it is so true. And then of course the gazillion bed coupons. She nailed the junk drawer. So that's that. I was just cracking up listening to her talk about it, because it's so true.
And it's crazy is everybody has a junk drawer, and then she's like, and we have a junk drawer, we call it a junk drawer, and isn't it junk? And isn't junk by definition most likely something that we don't need all the time, and you don't need 5 of, and you certainly don't need any old crumple sticky rubber bands.
I think some people call it the catch-all drawer too, though. It's like the catch-all when you're in a rush and you just throw it in there, and knowing eventually, you know, you'll rifle through it or get something you'll never need, kind of a thing. So Totally, totally get that to be true. But you know, the show that I did end up watching during the holidays was the Home Edit. I tell you, they make things look fabulous. It's just not realistic because I can't. I need the space. I don't need 2 inches in between my flour canister and my sugar canister. I need it all kind of stacked on top of each other. So, you know, because we don't have an unlimited amount of space. So that does make it hard to make it aesthetically pretty like that versus, you know, just have less stuff. The bottom line is
Well,
have less stuff. Because I think the
you
older I
know,
get, the more I realize I'd much rather have an experience or food or booze versus stuff. I don't need another pair of shoes. I don't need any more handbags or clothes or anything like that. But definitely, you know, candles and meals, hopefully dining out soon. You know, experiences, I think,
experiences. Yeah.
override stuff, you
Well,
know.
to your
So,
point, right? It feeds your body, or it feeds your aesthetic, or it feeds your mind, and it's those are the things you're seeking, and then everything else is literally becomes clutter and becomes in the way from that A to Z. And I
yeah,
will say this
can't
much:
take it with you.
yeah, that's right. We enter life without it, and you ain't leaving with it. So
Yeah.
enjoy it and share it. And I really, it's a great experience. People that know me and know my life definitely know my wife, and they're usually probably pretty surprised I haven't been pushed out the door in her constant purging of everything non-essential. I see things, I
Purge
go,
Sean.
we just got that. Yeah, exactly. Woo, he's out the door too. Like it's actually funny because it's so real. But I will tell you, oh my gosh, thank God for it, because without it, I would be burdened underneath the weight of it all. And she's
What's
fantastic.
funny
Very
is
fortunate.
we're both married to that. If I'm gone for a girls' weekend back in the day when we were doing those weeks, I'd be back and Larry had dumped out a whole entire section. My husband is constantly just getting rid of stuff. And I'm just like, what happened to it? Like, it's gone. Threw it out. Didn't need it. You know,
You don't
one
need
time
it.
he just totally got rid of every Tupperware, I think, that was older than, you know,
I
whatever. And I'm like,
know,
oh, but it,
but I
it, you know,
use
what's
that
great?
Tupperware.
What's great is though, definitely didn't need it. And
No,
frankly, I'm
you're right.
realizing more and more, there's a lot of things I really don't need, really,
So true.
you know, but I
So
loved your
true.
idea of the book because I do have my volleyball, you know, varsity jacket, you know, with the year on it, with the big volleyball on the back, my name on it. And I was like, I'm never wearing this thing again. But I think that the brilliancy is I'll take a photo of it with me wearing it now, put it in a booklet, and then I can look at it that way because I
Make a
don't
memory
need
book.
that taking space in my closet. So that was a great brilliancy I picked up, a great tip I picked up today.
I
So,
think
and
that's
I'll
a
do that with
brilliancy.
a couple of older items and things like that. So, you know,
I love that
gotta
idea.
love the
I
brilliant
love that.
people we're surrounded by.
That's so true. That's so true.
Well, I tell you, it's a full day. I mean, definitely have a lot of properties to show today, and just waiting actually for some inventory. You know, we have some buyers, and I really, 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 really wish I can get them that perfect home for them
Well,
sooner
they've
than
they've
later.
seen it. Your buyers have seen it. They know what it is now, and they won't miss a second time. And we always have to
Yeah.
look at it that way optimistically. And I will say this much: they have taken you from a person that was aware of inventory to somebody who's hyper aware and alert and cognizant and in multiple markets. And that adds so much to our value to the people we work for and with, that we can cross over. I mean, the house I put into escrow the other day is another section of town that typically you don't go into, but because we do spend time trying to learn the needs of our buyers and where the values are best for them, it was easy to recognize when we saw it. Like, okay, this has the real value. This is what you've been describing, and here it is. And we just caught it lucky. And the
Nice.
work you've done for these people, but I think the work you do for those people just sharpens you, iron sharpening iron. Like, you just get better and more knowledgeable, more relationships. It's a little tedious, the whole protocols we have to follow. It's an effort, but I know you well enough to know that you've streamlined that process as much as it can be, and you've been incredibly effective with it. And we have a lot of great things happening. And to your point, we're looking for new inventory, and we're going to be bringing some new inventory. We listed that wonderful condominium property that has already got a ton of activity on it and a lot of
Hmm.
looks and interest. So I'm excited to see that. And is that a 2-bedroom one? I have to look at it. I
Yeah,
see
it's
it
a
here. I just
two-bedroom,
haven't
one
noticed
and a
it.
half. It's a mile from downtown Culver City. So it's right off of Obama Boulevard and Jefferson. And it is so centrally located and so affordable. I think it's great. And we have a great house coming up in the Westwood Charter School District, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's just beautiful. So I think the kitchen was just redone a couple years ago, and the open living concept is everything that, you know, a buyer wants right now. And so I'm excited that we're going to have that soon. And you have heirs coming on back on very soon, and a house release on Cushton, right? And we have a house,
Yeah,
an apartment for rent over in Marina Del Rey, across the street from the ocean on Pacific Avenue, that's coming on today as well. So, I mean, we still have that duplex over in Carthay Circle.
well, the duplex gets real looks in it. The duplex is a fantastic property. It has great charm. It has its challenge, and that has to do with the tenant. But the fact of the matter is, the right person is starting to show up, and I can see it. And we're there all the time. Every time I go, I'm always happy to show it because it's always pleasing to show, and it is ultimately a good value. And I think again, as things unwind in our society, we're going to see an easing and more flow and fluidity and everything. And so I am very optimistic about things coming in 2021.
No kidding. We got lots of great transitions coming in 2021. So excited for what's about to happen. So the explosion.
Yeah. That's
All right,
for
my
sure.
buddy.
All right, doll.
Love you so much. Thank you.
Love you too. Have a wonderful